I think more and more we're moving to a different phase of the world economy where in some ways we're becoming less obsessed with global integration and global benchmarks and a little bit more about domestic integration. And I think the big challenge and as well the opportunity for a country like Peru is to close the very big productivity gaps, the big productive heterogeneity that exists within the Peruvian economy. That is to say, to bring the bottom and the middle up to the levels of productivity that already exist in Peru in some of the best performing firms. I think too many countries relied on globalization as their development strategy. And I think there was a view that by reducing barriers to trade, by opening yourself up to foreign investment, by signing trade agreements, that the investment and productivity and growth would follow. I think that's probably only about half of the challenge. I think countries like China or other East and Southeast Asian countries that did well always combined their globalization strategy with a domestic strategy of promoting investment and diversification through domestic policies. And I think so now I think there's a better understanding that you need a domestic strategy as well. I think that obsession with the global benchmarks, the World Economic Forum ratings or rankings, and OECD membership even, I think is detracting from what I said earlier is that domestic agenda. I think that's the big lesson from globalization from the last 25 years really, is that globalization can do wonders for some of your most productive parts, your professionals, your managers, your banks. But if that's limited to the top 10, 15% of the economy as a whole is not going to do very well. I think Mexico actually is a very good example where this dualism has kept the economy back. Peru has done better in that respect, but I think, again, it's going probably because of the weakness in the world economy and weakness of commodity prices. It's a challenge that it's going to face of how do you increase productivity in services, for example, which are not mostly traded and therefore they're not subject to international competition. How do you reduce informality, a perennial problem in Peru? So these are the kinds of things that will require, and I think are receiving much more attention today. I think the big global risk, of course, is that the uncertainty. I mean, it's not necessarily just the rise of populism and the backlash against globalization. The range of possibilities in terms of what politics can deliver these days has gone outside the bounds that we knew. So I think for countries like Peru, it's just the world economy is just going to be much less hospitable and much more risky. I don't say this specifically for Peru, I say it for developing and emerging market economies, that we need to lower our expectations about what a healthy, reasonable, sustainable growth rate is going to be. More of the impetus for growth will have to come from domestic sources, from increasing the productivity of the parts of society that have not necessarily been the beneficiaries of a lot of the growth in recent periods. Oh, yes, but we should write for, first we should be debating what kind of globalization we want and then fight for that. I think one of the downsides of the kind of globalization we have experienced is this idea that there was just one kind of globalization. In fact, we pursued an agenda of globalization that was highly biased, that served particularly well the interest of of banks and multinationals and exporters and pharmaceutical companies, but didn't necessarily serve the interest of workers or the middle classes, and also many other groups that were excluded from access to world markets. So it's just getting the rules right in a way that the benefits can be shared more broadly.